Hello there everybody, this is Ed from High Point Scientific coming at you with another video in our how-to series. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to control an EQ6-R Pro or EQ6-RI Pro Mount from your smartphone or tablet. Alright, let's get into it. So recently, Sky-Watcher released the EQ6-RI, which is a version of the EQ6-R Pro that's going to be including this Wi-Fi dongle right out of the box. Currently, this is sold separately, but on the RI model will be included instead of the hand controller that comes with the regular EQ6-R Pro version. Now what this Wi-Fi dongle does is it allows you to connect to the EQ6-R Pro with your smartphone or tablet and then control it from an app. Now this app includes all of the core functionality that the regular handset comes with, but in a package that's a little bit easier to navigate and actually adds some features on to those contained within the standard hand controller. So what we're going to be doing today is installing this Wi-Fi dongle on a regular EQ6-R Pro and then diving down into the app to explore some of the basic functions and some of the more advanced functions that you get on there and how to use those with your EQ6-R Pro or EQ6-RI Pro mounts. Now I do want to mention that this video is going to be broken up into chapters. So if we get to a point that you're already familiar with and you'd like to skip ahead, or after I'm done reviewing a section you would like to rewind and rewatch that section, check the timeline down below for some timestamps to help you navigate through all that. Additionally, we're going to be releasing a written guide to go along with this video that's going to talk about the basic features, setup, and some of the more advanced features like we'll be discussing in today's video. So if that's something you'd like to review, please check the description box down below for a link to that guide. So, first things first, to install our Wi-Fi dongle on the EQ6-R Pro, what we're going to need to do is first remove the hand controller. So I'm going to go ahead and unclip the cord from the hand controller port, and then just pull this off and set it off to the side. Next, I'm going to grab our Wi-Fi dongle and one of the cables from the box. My box came with two cables. The one that we're going to need for this has the same connector on each end. I'm going to clip the cable into the hand controller port and then clip the other end into our Wi-Fi dongle. So now that we've got that installed, the next thing we're going to need to do is power on the mount. So this is automatically going to turn on the Wi-Fi dongle, which will start broadcasting a wireless access point that we can connect to with our smartphone or tablet. So what I'm going to do is pull out my phone here, show you how to connect to that wireless access point, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into the app itself and show you how to navigate some of those features. Okay, so I've got my phone open here. I'm going to go ahead and navigate into the settings, navigate into connections, and navigate into Wi-Fi. Now I'm going to turn this on, so turn that on if it's not already on. And as we can see, we've got the SynScan Wi-Fi showing right up there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now I'm using a Galaxy Z Fold 2 running Android. The exact steps may differ depending on which manufacturer you have, what version of Android you have, or whether you're using an Apple device. However, these steps are going to be generally the exact same that you would use to connect to a normal Wi-Fi access point. Now, you'll see on my phone here, it's asking whether I want to switch to this wireless access point because there is no internet connection. You'll see this a lot on mobile devices in particular, where they're kind of hesitant to switch over because they always want to be connected to the internet. I'm going to select Connect this time to give it a pass. If you experience issues with your phone dropping the connection to the Wi-Fi dongle, you might want to go into some of the more advanced settings and whitelist this as something that your phone can always connect to try and push past that issue. So now that we're connected, I'm going to back out here and you'll see I have two versions of the SynScan app installed. Now, both of these versions are available for free on the Google Play Store or Apple iOS Store. Having looked at both of these, the main difference between the SynScan Pro and the regular SynScan app is that the SynScan Pro has a couple of extra settings that you can enable and mess with. The order in which all of the icons are arranged and the main way that you navigate through the app is exactly the same between the both of them. It's just that the Pro has a couple of extra icons that you can click on and delve through. Okay, so now that we've connected to the Wi-Fi access point, let's go ahead and see what it looks like to open the app for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the SynScan app, and it's going to give me a little message asking whether I want to allow or deny location permissions from my phone to the app. Now, what specifically the pop-up says and what options are available to you is going to depend on whether you're using Android or iOS and what version of those operating systems you're on. However, usually they'll give you either the option to allow it to access your GPS location or deny it from using that GPS location. I'm going to go ahead and say allow while using the app in this case, so that the app can pull that GPS data, which will become important for setting the location later, as well as some of the other features that are in the app itself. Now, if you select one of these options and would like to change it at a later date, most operating systems will allow you to go in on an app-by-app basis and adjust some of the permissions that you've either allowed or denied. That's going to fall a little bit outside of the scope of this particular video. However, just know that if you select the wrong option or choose one of these and would like to change your, would you like to revise your decision at a later date, it's easy enough to go in and change that. Now, since I'm connecting to this mount for the first time this session, we're going to see that the Connect box is present at the very top of the screen. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hit Connect. It's going to search for the mount. It found it, and it's stating that it's in equatorial mode, which makes sense because this is an EQ6-R Pro. And so now we're set to dive into the features that this app offers. Okay, so now that we've got the app talking to the mount, let's go ahead and set the location, time, and date. Before I dive into this, I am using an Android phone. However, I've used this on an Apple iPad and can confirm that all of the icons and settings are all in the exact same locations, at least at the time of filming. So anything I'm going over here will transfer over to using an iPhone or an iPad. First things first, let's go ahead and dive into the settings and dive into the location. Now, you can see that this pulled automatically from the GPS in my phone. That's because I have the use location sensor setting toggled on. And so long as that's toggled on and you've allowed the SynScan app the proper permissions to access the GPS, this should come up automatically. If it doesn't, you're going to want to go into the specific app permissions on either your phone or tablet and make sure that you give it access to the GPS sensor. However, not all devices will have one built in, and in that case, this setting should be disabled by default. However, if it's not, or if you want to enter something different than what the GPS is pulling in, you can go ahead and toggle it off up there. And when you do so, you see that we have the option to enter in some of these things manually. Okay, so now with the location out of the way, let's go ahead and check the time and date. I'm going to hit back, which is this little arrow up in the top left-hand corner. You'll see me press it again here. And now we're back to the main menu. Now here we've got the utility toolbox. I'm going to click that. I'm going to click information. And here we can see that it pulled the information off of the device itself. So this is going to match whatever time and date settings that your smartphone or tablet have. So if these are off, you're going to want to go into the time and date settings on your tablet or smartphone and adjust them accordingly. I can see that these are all correct for my location. And so I'm going to go ahead and back out again, back to the main menu. So now that we've got the location and time and date set correctly, what I'm going to go ahead and do is jump into how to control this mount manually. As you might have noticed, at the bottom of the screen here, there are these arrows. I accidentally just touched one. But if you don't see this, you can hit this little button in the bottom left-hand screen. As you can see, when I press this, this will either expand or collapse that little menu. And so if you've accidentally collapsed it, or if it started off with the manual control collapsed, you can just go ahead and touch that to bring it back up. So now that we've got it up, we have our arrows, but on the we also have these little arrows up top here. And as you can see, when I hit this one, the number in the center changes. It's a little unintuitive, but what that is your slew speed. And this corresponds about to what it was on the hand controller, right? So 9 being the fastest on the hand controller, 9 here is similarly that same maximum speed. So I've set this on the maximum speed so that we can see a marked change in the mount when I go ahead and try and move this. So to do that, first off, I'm just going to go ahead and hit this button here. We'll see the RA axis begin to move. And once I release, it stops. We can do the same thing with the declination axis. There you go, pretty simple. And one thing that I like about this that you have over the normal hand controller is that it has these little diagonal buttons as well. So if I press this, for example, we now get a combination of the right ascension and declination axis moving at the same time. Pretty neat. Okay, so now that we know how to manually move the mount, we can go into the alignment features. To access these, I'm going to go ahead and hit the alignment icon in the top left-hand corner. You'll see that I've already run through an alignment on this mount. And that's denoted by having these 2 stars up at the top to show that I've done a 2-star alignment. To clear this out, I'm going to go ahead and hit Reset Alignment. And it's going to ask if I'm sure. I'm going to hit OK. And so now you can see those 2 stars are gone. And we're ready to align. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 2-star alignment. It's going to give us a list of stars to choose from. You can see some of these are grayed out as we can't, as the mount won't be able to view those. So I think that's pretty neat that it shows you that. I'm going to go ahead and hit just the top 2 here and hit Begin Alignment. So now what it's going to do is it's going to do our first go to, and right now we're going to Vega. And there we go. So once it's reached it, it's now going to bring up our manual control section again, and we would go ahead and enter whatever adjustments we need to do to get that centered. So I'm just going to say click that. And once we've got it centered, you're going to go ahead and hit this button right in the center, the little star with the check mark. So that's going to tell the mount that we've got it centered, and it's going to go ahead and now move on to our second star. Thought it was going to hit me. Alright, so now that we've got our second star there, I'm going to go ahead, you would do the same thing. You would just center it in the field of view. And one thing you'll note is that if I go too far, I have this flashing arrow up top. This says that what I've entered shouldn't be possible with the pointing model that it has going on. So if you've maybe selected a star and got it centered on the wrong one or something like that, this should help save you from that. So now that I've got that centered, I'm going to go ahead and click the button in the center, the little star with the check mark. And once I've done that, we can see, again, I've got a 2-star alignment. Again, if we wanted to clear this out, we would hit Reset Alignment, and that would clear it out and allow you to start over. Okay, so now that we've got our location, time, date, and star alignment set, we're ready for our first go-to. So, we can get to these by navigating into either the star menu, where we have solar system, named stars, double stars, comets, or we can select the deep sky catalogs. Here you can see you have a couple of catalogs to choose from. I'm just going to navigate to M101 here. I'm just going to click into the box, and it brings up this little dial pad. I'm going to put in 101 for the Pinwheel Galaxy, and I'm going to hit Go To. And there we go. Now it's going to go ahead and locate the Pinwheel Galaxy. And here we are at the Pinwheel Galaxy. So one last feature that a lot of people will consider as one of the more basic ones, but Sky-Watcher sequesters in the Pro version of the app, is how to adjust the illumination on the Polar Scope Illuminator. So, to get to that, what I'm going to need to do is back out of the regular app here, launch the Pro version. I'm going to need to connect, go into Utility, Advanced, Polar Scope, and you can see on the bottom of the screen here we have a slider that can adjust the Polar Scope illumination. Currently it's set to be off. I'm going to go ahead and just, you can see if you touch it and then drag at any point on the screen, you can adjust the illumination level. So right now it's at 5. You can't see it because obviously it's behind this cap, but once you're done you can go ahead and turn that to off and you'll be all set. Now I hope that is a feature that Sky-Watcher brings over to the regular version of the app in the future. However, again, the Pro version is free if that is a feature that you need to take advantage of. Let's go ahead and dive into how to adjust the tracking rate. We're going to go into Utilities again, go into Tracking, and here you see you'll have a couple of settings. You've got no tracking, sidereal rate, and lunar rate. Right now, you can see this is on no tracking. It's denoted by that little red check mark. If I wanted to change it, I would just touch one of these options. You'll see that the red check mark moves over to whatever option I've selected, and we're good to go. So now that we've gone over some of the more basic features like manual control, entering the location data, and doing our first go-to, let's dive into some of the more advanced features of the app. So first, let's go ahead and take a deeper look at that information menu that I showed you earlier. Let's go back into Utility, let's go into Information, and we can see we have some additional things such as our coordinates, the location of Polaris to help assist you with polar alignment. We have some information about our alignment. We have the version of the app. You'll see currently I'm using 2.0.6. And one thing that I think is really cool is that we also have our motorboard version number here as well. You can see I'm on 3.14.23. And so one other neat feature that this app carries over from the hand controller is something called Tonight's Best. So if we navigate into the utility menu and then up into Tonight's Best up in the top right hand corner here, you can see it's giving you a list of celestial objects that it thinks would be a good choice for you to observe or image based on the location of the mount and the date. So we can see we have some deep sky objects, some planets, and some double stars. Another cool feature is the ability for this mount to identify celestial objects that are near the location that the mount is currently pointed. So to do that, we'll go into Utility, we'll go into Identify, and you'll see here, based on the telescope's orientation, it will give you celestial objects that are nearby. Okay, so next let's take a look at some of the things that you can find in the Settings menu. Let's go ahead and click on Settings. And here the first one we can see is the user interface. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Here you can select the default language for the app, the footer padding, which is, if you can see, this is moving that arrow pad up and down on the screen. You can also turn on and off vibration here. Currently, when I press one of these buttons, it gives me a little bit of vibrational feedback when doing that. Also, when doing a go-to or a part of the two-star alignment process, it will vibrate once it's reached the location that it's been asked to salute to. If you don't like that, you can go ahead and turn that off here. So now when I press these buttons, I don't get any vibrational feedback. I'm going to turn that back on, but you can turn it off if it bothers you. And then the last thing that's in here is night mode. So right now this is set to auto, and what auto will do is, based on the time of day that you're using it, it will change the color scheme of the app. So right now it thinks it's later in the day, so it's set us to this black and red theme that should be more beneficial for night vision. Now if we wanted to change this, you can go ahead and click this and force it to always be on. So if you always want it to be this red and black color scheme, you can do that. Or you can turn it off, which will give us this white and green, which is quite nice, but you can understand that using this in the dark is maybe not the best choice. Also in the settings menu here we have backlash. So I can go ahead and click this, and we have some sliders where we can add some backlash compensation. Okay, so one last feature that I want to touch on before we end today's video is a neat feature that Sky-Watcher added into the app that you can't actually get on the normal hand controller. Now that feature is called Point and Go, and you can access it in the Utilities section right here. Now I'm not actually going to click on that, as in order to use it your mount needs to be polar aligned, which this one is not. However, what you do is you point your phone roughly at what you want to be observing and hit that button, and the mount will begin to slew towards that target. Now to be able to take advantage of this feature, you will need the correct suite of sensors in your phone. I believe at this time it's a GPS and digital compass, and it will just get you pointing roughly at what your phone is pointing at. But I think that's a neat feature, to point your phone in an area of the sky, and then you can use either the identify feature or manual control to really dial in something that you might be interested in looking at. One last thing I want to touch on here is how to power down and park the mount. If we go back into the utility menu, we can go ahead and hit the hibernate button, and we can have it hibernate either at its current position, which will be whichever position it's pointed at currently, or we can select at home position, which will automatically set us to the 0 position. And with that set, we can go ahead and turn off the mount. So those have been the basic and some of the more advanced features of the Sky-Watcher Wi-Fi dongle and its companion SynScan app. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, as it really helps us out. Additionally, if you liked today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel for more how-tos, astronomy, and astronomy product-based content. As always, thanks so much for watching our video, and until next time, clear skies.